Stage 5, the turmoil. The married couple was doing well with their new lives. They adjusted quite well. Ginger rented out her apartment and moved in with Callum. The transition to fully living together was quite easy for them both. They acknowledged each other's pet peeves but were adult enough to know that change wouldn't happen overnight. But the universe allowed them understanding and patience in dealing with each other. The ability to be in an environment where both parties felt safe to speak their mind and have civilized discussions was the cornerstone of their marriage. Everything was going well in the magical countryside until Callum got ill. He contracted a new flu strain called Cicardes. This virus rapidly spread across Europe and eventually became a global pandemic. While Ginger remained healthy, she was deeply concerned for Callum. Their frustration grew as they reflected on the mandatory vaccinations imposed by government regulations, which they had ultimately chosen to receive. Ginger watched her once vibrant husband succumb to dullness and depression. The virus preyed on those with low dopamine levels, a puzzle Ginger couldn't solve, especially since Callum had received the vaccine designed to maintain a steady dopamine balance and ward off the infection. It felt as if a cosmic reset was underway, forcing humanity back to its roots. Governments worldwide underwent radical transformations to preserve life. Work weeks shortened, wages increased, travel restrictions eased, and food costs dropped. The focus shifted to human well-being, a stark realization that a population ravaged by Cicardes would render governance and economic stability impossible. Too much sadness in the world? But why wasn't my husband happy? She had no answers, only unwavering dedication. Day after day, she poured herself into his recovery. Juggling household chores with the demands of his business, she did her best to keep things afloat. Desperate to maintain the quality of his bread and pastries, she turned to YouTube for guidance. But the artistry involved proved elusive, and the decline in sales was a painful blow she knew would devastate Callum. Despite her efforts, she felt a heavy weight of inadequacy. Not losing faith, she continued her Sunday routines under the willow tree, even though she was alone. She spoke to her God. She cried to her God because she missed Callum. She cried to her God because she did not know what else to do. She cried to her God because she wanted her husband to get better. Help me to help my husband, she prayed to her God. Thank you for all you continue to do for us in your universe. Lead me to where you need me to be. Amen. The following months were lonely. The loneliness she felt back in Edinburgh washed over her. She was beginning to get emotional. She did not want the virus. Breathe, Ginger. Breathe, she repeated in her mind. To make ends meet, she returned to her old job at the gallery on a part-time basis. Evenings were spent at the bakery until 9. When she got home, she would shower Callum with affection, her demeanor a constant beacon of hope. Despite his minimal communication and distant presence, she didn't push. Instead, Ginger allowed him to be. After cooking, she'd often suggest a pre-dinner walk under the willow tree to relax and get some fresh air, but he never indulged her. Nonetheless, Ginger allowed him to be with hopes that one day, there would be improvements. Her only solace came from his nightly ritual of spooning her and hearing his soft, "I love you." That's better than nothing. He will come around, SpongeBob assured her before she dozed off. Ginger committed one day of the week to herself. She read books to uplift her spirit, and in the evening, she would meditate under the willow tree. The volume in her head decreased as she listened to a meditation guide on her phone. The only way she could keep her sanity and continue to be present for her husband was by regulating her mind. And when she was done, she would lie next to the spot where Callum would be and imagined him next to her trying to give his best impersonation of a Digipalmer. The thought brought tears to her eyes, but she knew better not to give in to her emotions, not with Cicardes around. 2 years later, Callum was on the mend. Her unwavering faith had sustained her through the darkest hours. A spark ignited his spirit when his parents and siblings visited. Though hesitant to reach out to a family she barely knew, fear couldn't hold her back. She took the plunge and made the call. Ginger was great at communicating with the ops. She had a way of listening to understand instead of listening to respond, and in the end, love conquered egos and killed the virus. That night, she cried happy tears, meditated and gave gratitude to the universe, under the willow tree.